Stephanie Anderson, the Everyday Learners Director for United Way of Utah County, and I'm here today teaching a Ready to Learn class for Welcome Baby. I'm excited to be with you for our 4th week, and we want you to know, like our other weeks, that if you go to the video description, there's a link to the slides and to the videos, so you just need to make sure that that's up and running. I know it's hard to see the slides from this room, but we're glad that we could be with you remotely. And at the end of the workshop, there'll be a survey that you'll fill out. And I promise to say the word that you need to hear, the key word that you'll need to answer in the survey. I seem to forget that, so I have a way to do it this week, but we are glad that you're joining us. It's really been fun to read your comments and to connect with some people that we haven't been able to because you've moved away. You used to come to the Ready to Learn classes live, and you've moved away, and now you are joining us from a different city or even a different state. So that's been a lot of fun to catch up with some people and to reconnect with people. Again, those of you that are living in Utah County, if you do have needs, please call 211. There are resources for food and for rent assistance, for housing, and we know that there's a lot of people that are losing their jobs, and there needs to be some things that if you need anything, that 211 is there for you. So also we have some other resources for some other classes that you could take if you're interested in. So today we're going to talk about emergent literacy, and what is that and why do you need to know it? Emergent literacy is things that start out. So when you emerge, like a lot of my tulips are just emerging out of the ground, it's fun to see them popping out, and that's what we're going to talk about, is things that for literacy that are going to be emerging in the first 5 years of your child's life. Now, as we get to the end, you're going to notice, as most people and as myself, as it's almost like a circular thing, that you go to emergent literacy and then you're going to start the process over, maybe with reading and then understanding. And so we're going to talk about that. And it makes me always think of the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. It starts with one thing and it ends with the same thing. And so I just want to read this book to you. As you're listening to this book, what I'd like you to do is really focus on the pictures. Most of the time, parents are focusing on the words, but I want you to look at the pictures and see if you see anything that you've never seen before by just focusing on the pictures. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. If You Give a Mouse a Cookie by Laura Numeroff. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. When you give him milk, he'll probably ask for a straw. And when he's finished, he'll ask for a napkin. Then he'll want to make sure to look in the mirror to make sure he doesn't have a milk mustache. And when he looks in the mirror, he might notice his hair needs a trim. So he'll probably ask for a pair of nail scissors. When he's finished giving himself a trim, he'll want a broom to sweep up. He'll start sweeping. He might get carried away and sweep every room in the house. He may end up washing the floors as well. When he's done, he'll probably want to take a nap. And you'll have to find him a little box with a blanket and a pillow. He'll crawl in, make himself comfortable, and fluff the pillow a few times. He'll probably ask you to read him a story. So you'll read him one of your books, and he'll ask to see the pictures. When he looks at the pictures, he'll get so excited, he'll want to draw one of his own. He'll ask for some paper and crayons. He'll draw a picture. When the picture is finished, he'll want to sign his name with a pen. Then he'll want you to hang his picture on your refrigerator, which means he'll need Scotch tape. He'll hang up his drawing and stand back to look at it. Looking at the refrigerator will remind him that he's thirsty. So he'll ask for a glass of milk. And chances are, if he asks for a glass of milk, he's going to want a cookie to go with it. So as we talk today, I want you to think of that story and think of some of the concepts that I'm going to talk about that book, but also about it's almost a circular. And so as we're talking about emergent literacy, it is something that you're going to see over and over again in your child's education and even as you learn your things. So as we go through here, we do know in emergent literacy that there are 5 items that happen. And if we had a live audience, I would ask, which do you think comes first? I would probably divide you in groups and ask, okay, which comes first and then which comes second? And as you look at these words, decoding, talking, writing, listening, comprehension, I want you to think, what would come first for a child to have to learn to read eventually? Now, a lot of people, and I think this is very good thinking, is you might say comprehension. You're always comprehending, and that's true. But today we're going to use that as one of an item and not just in between each one of them. But most people are right when they say, well, you have to comprehend in all of them. So a lot of people, when I took a class and learned about this, I didn't get them right. There was one that sort of mixed me up, and I thought, well, you didn't give us the whole picture or help us to understand everything. So we're going to go through those now in order of what comes first and the last item and how you can use it and what you should be doing right now. As soon as your child is born, you should be using these skills to help them so when they get ready to read, whether that's at home or in school, then they will have what they need to make sure that happens. And so the first task that a child needs to do is listening. And listening is very important. As we talked about last week in the shared reading class, listening skills precede reading comprehension. So listening helps children eventually learn to read. And it's so important. And so that means they need something to listen to. And as you as a parent might, sometimes if you're a first-time parent and it's just you and your child at home, you might feel awkward talking all the time. But it's a really important step in helping them in the emergent literacy skills, that you need to be talking all the time. So talking is very important. But there's a different type of talking. There's the command type of talking where you're just telling children what to do. And that is brush your teeth, go to bed, don't hit your sister, eat your food. That's command. And then there's a conversation type is when you're actually asking questions or engaging in a conversation. And children very, very young as 3 months, can converse. You can see that. And right now, experts are calling that serve and return, that you actually have a dialogue with children. And so it's really important to do this. We're going to watch some Born Learning clips, and they're really some of my favorite clips about talking to children, and sometimes it seems a little awkward, but you should be doing it in all the time and in different places to help children learn in different environments. So I'm going to play a couple clips by Born Learning.
I am folding the pants. The pants are long. Do they go on my head? Do they? Do the pants go on my head? No, they go on.
Everyday moments can become teaching moments because learning starts long before school does. Give your child the start they need at bornlearning.org.
Don't walk, walk. Do not enter. Hot dogs. Definitely like hot dogs. Motorcycle club. Every Let's go. Ghostly ghouls. Don't look at that, Teddy. Body piercing. Ouch.
Everyday moments can become teaching moments because learning starts long before school does. Give your child the start they need at bornlearning.org.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 little piggies ready to play. The big pig is Pedro. Pedro Piggy. He's the big piggy.
Everyday moments can become teaching moments because learning starts long before school does. Give your child the start they need at bornlearning.org.
I love those clips. I think it shows that sometimes we just need to go out of our comfort zone. Now, it would be a little awkward right now if we were taking off our socks in the public transit, wouldn't it? But for that time, I think that's really shows that we need to be talking to our children. Now, I'm going to put up another slide, and I'm going to do a math problem. Now, we know that the more we talk to our children, they hear words that are sounds that are called phonies. And phonies are the smallest sound a letter makes. And the more we talk, the more phonies a child hears that will connect them to the phonics and the different words that will eventually learn to them understanding words. But at the first, it's those phonies that they're going to hear, and then they're going to repeat those. And that's your da, 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 ma, 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 ba, ba, ba. And so one of the things that we know, and I understand this a lot in my life, is we seem to say the same words over and over again, don't we? And we don't want to just say the same sounds. We want children to learn all the sounds. There's 44 phonies in the English language, and we want them to hear them all. Now, that's where books come in, even for young children, is when you're reading books, and last time we talked about you could just read anything. What children are hearing are different words and different sounds. And so reading really starts really young at birth, so children will hear those different phonies. Now, as a parent talks, it's really important, and I just want to put this up here for you to see, is that the number of words you say in a child's life really matters. When I talked about command mode and conversation mode, we know that during a child's life, there's a time between 18 months and 2 that is called a language explosion. And children between that age, that 6 months, will go from speaking very few words to speaking a lot. Now, in this study that was done by the Department of Early Education, they talked about the importance of talking and not just saying a few words, but expanding those words. And there's a lot of studies and a lot of books written about this. And if any of you are interested, I would be glad to send you links or articles that refer to this. But it's just very simply this. In a child's life between about 18 months and 2, there's approximately 180 days. Now, a child that is spoken to in command mode, they're learning 3 words a day. And so within a 6-month amount of time, if 180 days times 3, they would learn about 540 words. Now, if a child is spoken into conversation mode, they're learning triple that. They're learning 9 words a day. And you go from 180 times 9, and that gives that child about 1,620 words that they're learning in a 6-month amount of time. Now, what's interesting is that a normal 2-year-old child that's developing on track, they're saying about 200 words. So you might think, well then, why are you saying that they're learning 1,620 if they only say about 200? And that's because they can understand what you're saying, but they might not be able to say all the words. But by doing this over and over again, they're learning more sounds and they're being able to learn those words. And it makes a big difference. This study goes on to say that parents that continue to educate themselves, like you're doing today, their child learns 12 words instead of that 3 or 9. And so your education and what you do directly has an impact on your child's education. And I think that that's really good for you to understand that you need to continue to do things to help them, because what you do for yourself will eventually lead to help them. Now, what's the difference? So if we did the command mode for eat your dinner, then you look at this. It's time to put your box away. We're going to eat in 5 minutes. Can you see your favorite red strawberries? Oh, I'm so hungry. My tummy is rumbling. There's a lot more sounds. There are lots more words. You're expanding that. Now, the key word today is in here. It's strawberries. So I got it. I gave myself a hint to make sure that I said that today. But you can see the difference. Now, when children go to school and they've been raised in a home that's command, they have a third less of vocabulary words than a child that's talked to in conversation mode. And so we're already putting a child behind by how many words they hear. And it doesn't cost anything to talk to your children. Now, I have to say, and my children can attest to this, that by the end of the night, I am in command mode. I'm like, it's time for bed. Brush your teeth. Turn off the TV. I get like that. But I have to remind myself, or did when I had younger children, to make sure that I was talking to them consistently. And once again, music and books, these are the type of things, and pointing out things in their environment can really help expand that. Now, as a child points to something, you can follow their lead and have open-ended questions, even when they can only say a couple words. And then if they say, sun's hot, then you can expand on that. And that's what we call serve and return. I always say in this item or at this skill, you've got a lot of time to help your children, and it's one of the few times that they're actually going to listen to you. So take advantage of that, but make sure that you're talking to your children all the time. Our next skill is talking. And this is what I say to young parents. If you have children in this stage, you might want to get a big bottle of pain reliever, because you're going to hear a lot of words and a lot of dialogue. And it starts out very early. We do know that when a child is very young, we have a stage that's called the oral stage. And you have seen this. They put everything in their mouth. If they see it, it goes in their mouth. They actually learn about their environment and learn about the world through that oral application. Now, this next stage is called the verbal stage, and that's when children talk and talk and talk. Yes, they do talk to hear themselves think. In fact, a lot of the leading child psychologists say that when they're talking, that it gives them a conversation to speak out loud and to understand the world. Sorry about that. And so children typically ask 79 questions a day. So children in this stage. So if you have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, times 79 times 3, that's how many questions you're getting. About 240 questions a day that you are being asked. And what you'll probably find is a lot of times they do not wait to hear the answer. They're just trying to actually solve their own problems as they're talking. Now, one thing that I do want you to know, that this is an important phase of child development. And if a child at 2 is not saying 200 words that everyone can understand, that's a time to call your doctor or an early intervention specialist, or at United Way, we have the Help Me Grow team that can make sure that your child is developing on track. Because speech is one of it's a pretty top delay in childhood education. but it's very easy to help with it. And there's a lot of places for early intervention in Utah that can help a child with that. So at this stage, what you want to do is listen to your children. Give them lots of opportunities to talk to you, and have books that they can read. This Goodnight Gorilla is a book that children can read. Last week we talked about shared reading, and that we talked that books should be simple and engaging and enhancing. And this book actually has those different items in it, and I'll show you after we read it. But this is a really fun book because children can read it. Good night, gorilla. Uh-oh, what did that gorilla do? Good night. And if we had a child here, he could say elephant. Good night, lion. Good night, hyena. Good night, giraffe. Good night, Amarillo. It looks like they know what they're doing. Good night, dear. Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Good night, zoo. Good night, dear. Good night. Good night, gorilla. So a very easy book. I hope that as you looked at yourself reading to your children and you noticed that you were doing the shared reading, the dialogical reading where the simplification, the enhancement, and the engagement. In this book, what you'll find is the little mouse with the banana. So on every page, he's there. And so you can actually have the child find that after you read the page, or don't even read the book and just do that, the simplification. But again, children want to talk and talk and talk. Find books that they can read along with. One of my favorites is Your Mama a Llama? And there's questions in there that children can answer. I know that most of your kids have a favorite book and they know the words or some of the sounds or maybe just a couple of the keywords that they can do. This week, we are fortunate that my granddaughters, my grandkids live downstairs from me and get to visit me upstairs all the time. And they were reading a book, and it's so cute to read it a couple times and then listen to them know the book and some of those key phrases. It's really fun that just after a couple times that they can read along. I want to show you this clip. It's a pretty famous clip, but I do want to show you how important it is that you give the children a chance to talk. It is very important for them to be talking. That goes on for quite a while as they engage in talking. Give your kids the opportunity. Remember, a child is asking about 79 questions a day, and one of the experts are like, why does that drop off? Maybe we need to listen a little bit more to our kids, but we believe that a lot of it is because They don't have to verbally express everything. An article I read years and years ago, in fact, I found it so important for me that I actually cut it out, the article, and saved it for many years. But there was a part of it, of the article, that said, asking a child to sit down and be quiet is like asking them to sit down and not think. Now, we're talking about very young children here. And so I think it's very important that as you are engaging with your young children, your toddlers, that you're giving themselves time to express themselves. So as you're doing it, thank you for helping me expand that. I forgot. Getting some cues here from my one daughter who's been kind enough to come and help us out here. And then my employees from home are helping me out too, so thank you. And I've now lost my train of thought. So we do need children to be able to talk and to express themselves and give them lots of opportunities to do that. One of the best ways is through play. Marie Montessori used to say, or did say, that children, when they're playing, they're a head taller. You're going to hear children say words that they hear their parents or their peers say, or the television says, or what they've heard in a book. So letting your children talk and respond to them is really important. It helps them learn to read eventually. I do remember what I was saying about asking a child to sit down and not and to be quiet is like asking them not to think. And so I know when I taught preschool, my children, when I said something like that to them, they were thinking, but not usually about what I was talking about. And so a lot of times they would just come out with random things, and I learned very quickly that I needed to give them the space to talk and to share before we could go on to learn a concept. So remember that working with young children. As you're finding preschools and as you're finding daycares, make sure that the children are not just talked at or to, but they're talked with, and there's a lot of conversation, because it does have a big impact on their reading levels. The next thing that we're going to talk about is writing. Now, this is the one that I actually, when I did this little quiz, which comes first, which comes second, I put this as last. And I found out that I was incorrect, that writing comes after talking. And that means scribbling, and it means a lot of environmental print. So we need to make sure that children have the opportunity to write. I remember being at a conference and listening to a gentleman that was such a well-known educator in the state of Utah and in Alpine School District, and he said that we really have an emphasis on reading now in our homes. We know the importance of it, and most homes are practicing it, but we've sort of forgotten about that writing, and that writing is just as important. And so in pre-emergent literacy, a lot of the things are going to be emergent literacy. And I'm sure that as you're looking at this slide, you can tell me where, what everything goes to. And that's environmental print. Children can know very quickly. We used to try to get my daughter to turn her head before we passed through a McDonald's, because she'd see it and want to stop and play. And it wasn't the word that she saw, it was their symbol. As an adult, you might think, oh, we don't use environmental print anymore, but I promise you do. I know that when I use a restroom, I'm always looking for the symbol along with the word. And when we combine those two, that makes a big difference. So this gentleman, he suggested that you take, whether it's a ream of paper, if it are notebooks as your children are getting older, and having them write every day too. And their scribbles will become pictures which become meaning to them. I do want to show you another slide. And I know that this is probably a little fuzzy, but if any of you want me to send this to you, I will. Or if you want some information on writing and how it helps with reading, I can do that too. But you've got some pre-literate writing, and then you've got your emergent. And so we've got up here, your scribble marks are just scribbling, then they become symbolic, and then this is to them, they're writing. Now, this is what we should be doing as parents when children are in this writing phase, is that you could ask them, tell me about your picture. And then you write the words right there so they can know that those pictures have meaning and your letters have meaning too, and that they go together. And so as you're coming down here, you're going to make sure that children, they're going to go from here down to here. But it's very hard if they don't have that practice. If you're worried about marks getting on your wall, use chalk. There's a lot of erasable markers now and different things that you can use, but writing is very important with children. And when we look at books, the pictures make the difference. I know that I've read books before that my kids and grandkids have said, don't turn the page yet, because those pictures do have a lot of meaning. And so sometimes you're reading books and you're looking at the pictures as much as you are looking or as reading the words. And so finding books like Goodnight Gorilla and Goodnight Moon that I've got here too are books that children can look at the whole picture and understand what's going on. A lot of one of my favorite books that has great illustration is The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash. And the pictures really tell the story. They just comes alive. And even as an adult, as I read it, I just want to stop and read and look at the pictures, because the pictures do help the understanding. I'm not going to read this book to you, but I'm going to show you a little bit about it. I would say to find some wordless books so children can look at the pictures, look at the print, and tell their own story and talk as they're looking at the story. Stellaluna is such a beautiful book. The pictures are gorgeous. And there's a lot of print right here that tells the story of a bat named Stellaluna. Now, in this corner, right up here at the top, there's a wordless story that's going on. And this wordless story is about Mom and not Stellaluna. And so when Stellaluna and Mom are together, the illustration is going to be exactly the same. But an owl comes and tries to get them. And so this is where we're going to diverse. And so you've got the mother of Stellaluna and then Stellaluna. And it's just as you're going, and then you can have your child tell what's happening. I call this book a cuddle book. The reason why is because they have to sit on your lap to see that story and be able to understand it. Mercer Mayer has some really good wordless books. It's called A Boy and a Frog. And so you can look at those and just use the print to tell the story. But as a child gets older, don't make them rush through. Let them use that print and let them write. Give them the opportunity to write as much as they can. I know my grandkids have gotten so tired of me saying this to them, but sometimes boring is great because that's when our creative minds start to go. So being able to write. I know that you can record your own stories if your child has difficulties writing, but giving them the opportunity to write. Spell check is a great thing for them to be able to write their own stories, but save some of those. This gentleman said, let your children see how they've advanced through the years and to be able to go through those different stages on their own and point those out. So remember, we've got first, we want children to be talked to. One thing that experts have found is that nothing electronic replaces a human voice. The studies they've done at the University of Washington has shown that children will have a live person and they'll be talking right to them. And then that same person, they'll videotape them, and the brain and the language development in the brain where those neurons light up, they are not lighting up on the electronic images, but only with the real live person. So parents, please talk to your kids. Don't stop talking to them. Talk to them throughout their lives. It's something that's really important. The second thing is letting them talk and express themselves and use the words and sounds to play with. Then writing. Now the next one was I just want to share this one. The symbols, signs, numbers, and colors found in McDonald's, Walmart, Exxon, Pizza Hut, 7-Up, and on websites, for instance, they offer excellent entry points for young children to begin to learn to read, write, and do math. Isn't that interesting that kids, how important those environmental print is? The next one is decoding, and as a mom, this one was the hardest one for me, is decoding. And this is where children are taking the phonics or those phonies and putting them together. They know that it's what a C, the sound makes of a C, or an L, and they're putting those together. Now, one thing that's really important to remember as a child learns to decode is that when you're reading a book to them, they are really concentrating on decoding and nothing else. And the example that I share and have shared for years, so I'm sorry if you've heard this, those of you that have attended the workshops, is think about a time when you've been given something to read. Maybe it's a passage, or maybe in a class you've been able to read something out of the text. And so your teacher and instructor asks you to read something. And so you read it. You probably read it silently a couple times to make sure that you know all the words and get what you're supposed to say out loud. And then after you've read it, the instructor might say, now tell me what that means. And your mind freezes. You're like, I don't know what it means. I just read it for you. And so just like a child, just like you were doing, you're concentrating on being able to read out loud and the phonetics, that you're not getting the meaning out of the text. And so as your child is decoding, when they're reading the books like Hop on Pop or those leveled readers, you're not cheating by reading the book to them before, so that they can get the meaning or comprehend the meaning of the book, and then they can concentrate on the decoding or the vocabularies. Now, again, I'm going to go back to last week. I said a quote that you should be reading to your children out loud until they leave your home. And Jim Trelease, who is the proponent of that, he talks about that you should be reading 2 levels above where your child is. And that's so that your child can just listen to the vocabulary words and get the meaning without trying to stumble through. And so they should be reading what they can read on their own, what they're comfortable with, and then you read out loud 2 grade levels above for them. And so during this time of decoding, don't worry about as much comprehension. Read books, read stories to kids, and then as they're decoding, pick out maybe some of the words that they're supposed to be learning, some of the phrases and things like that they're learning that they can pick up as you're reading. But don't think that they're going to understand it, because that's not going to be. I mean, I still, chemistry, I could read the words very clearly, but the understanding was very hard for me, even after I read it over and over and over again. And so maybe you can understand how children feel in this stage. It takes a long time to make all that make sense. And so there's a lot of work and there's a lot of repetition that you need to be doing in that. So the last part is comprehension. And comprehension is very important. There was a time in our education that we felt if children knew phonetics, that they could sound out any word, that they were actually a great reader. And so a lot of the efforts were just concentrated on decoding and phonetics. And there was not a lot of attention put on, do you understand what you just read? And now in our school systems, comprehension at any grade level is a very important component of, now you've read this, can you understand? And so that's why even with a 3 or 4-year-old, you can say, what happened first? What happened second? And then they can tell you the story, and that means they've comprehended it, if they can put that story sequence together. That's why nursery rhymes are so great for little children, because they're about 30 seconds long, and children can say them and comprehend what's happening. So comprehension is very important. And as you're reading books and stories, ask open-ended questions. Talk about the environmental print. Talk about how many animals there are. Help children understand what you're reading and why you're reading it, and not just to get through the book, but so that they will comprehend. So children in our school systems are being tested not only on decoding, but on their fluency and on their comprehension to make sure that they are understanding what they're reading. Another slide I want to show you is comprehension goes beyond reading the text on the page. It involves finding meaning in the text and being able to summarize, reiterate, and apply it after it's been read. And this is something from a study that I just think is so interesting about the importance of reading. And children go through these steps. That first they'll connect the book to their own life experiences. Remember last week we talked about making a book of your children and making their own book, because children relate to what they like. And so that's that first stage. So they're going to relate to what they like. And so as you're reading a book, whatever it is, you want to, as a very young child, relate that to something that's going on in their lives. So if you're reading, if you give a mouse a cookie, you could talk about, what do you like to do to get ready to bed? What are some things that you like? And then connecting the book to other literature that they've read. And I think this is interesting because we do this comprehension in our own lives. I remember in my college experience reading a book that was written hundreds of years ago and relating it to my own life. And then relating it to, I read another book by another author that had the same theme. And then the next thing is then we connect to reading to universal concepts, which I think is interesting, is children don't do this until later in life, where they can think of that text and apply it to other people and other things and other situations. But the more we help children point out those things, especially those first two, then as they get older, they can start picking out those universal themes. So comprehension goes way beyond, can you answer the question for this test? It goes beyond to, how did this help me in my life? And as a parent, you can be the one that starts pointing those things out. You can start connecting something to another book. You can start thinking about, remember when we were at grandma's, or remember when we went to the beach, and connecting those to other things. It's so important to do that because that's where real comprehension takes place. And so as I said in the beginning when I was reading If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, those 5 things begin all over again in all of our school, but they're not the pre-literacy. They're not the emergent literacy. We're beyond emergent, and now we're getting into other dynamics of it. But we still need to listen. We still need to talk about it. Teachers have always said that if you really want to do well on a test, teach somebody else it. It's because you're having to say it out loud, because that helps us remember, just like a child that's talking out loud to remember. And then writing about it. And then decoding the information. Maybe it's not going to be as much decoding the words, but in some cases, like my chemistry class, it was still decoding those words. And then it's understanding. And this understanding goes into these 3 categories, not just to take a test. So I want to talk about a couple books that we have today. One of the first things that we want you to read to your children are board books. So those of you that have very young children, we want to do a lot of rhyming, to hear those different phonies, to hear those different sounds. Board books are good because children can hold them, they can chew on them, they can play with them. And so books everywhere in your house, remember. As a child gets older and they want to talk, then books like Eric Carla, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, so that they can point out all the fruits and talk about the different fruits and which is their favorites. And then as they see all the foods. So children can really get a lot out of you just pointing to the things, and they read the things, and they're a part of the book. Look for books that have lots of great illustrations. The Big Wide Mouth Frog is one of those. I remember when I got first was introduced to this book, I asked my daughter, who was in kindergarten, what she thought this book was about. And she looked at it and she said, I think it's about Australia. And I don't know why, but she was right. Most of these animals are. Maybe she was talking about that in her kindergarten class. But that's what she said, and it was fun to talk about. Yeah, it is about animals, but it was about a big wide mouth frog. Really a fun book. Fun illustrations. Use illustrations to point things out. As you're driving in the town, use the environmental print to help children see things and ask them what that means as they go. And then decoding, like I said, takes a lot of time, a lot of practice. Don't get frustrated with your kids if they see Matt and then they don't quite get bat. It really does take a lot of practice, but don't hesitate reading the book beforehand so they can understand the meaning. And then comprehension, let's connect those to our children's lives and to other books, and then to big experiences in the world. Again, that's a key word was strawberry. Remember, doesn't that sound good? It sounds good to me right now, a big red strawberry. That's your key word that you're going to look for. You have until April 17th. Can you believe we're halfway through April? We are planning on doing these until the 1st of June, and then going to see what our county agencies are saying about being together. But we hope you're safe. Again, if there's anything you need, call 211, connect to United Way. We have resources for emotional support and for items that you need, such as rent assistance and food. We really thank you for joining us. We've really loved to listen to your comments. Don't forget to fill out the sheet. You have till Friday, and then we'll send the books out the following Monday. I hope you've been enjoying the books, that you're receiving them, and they've been things that you've been enjoying reading with your kids. So we'll see you next Tuesday at 3 o'clock.